Hello, this is Mark from Garrett's Guitars. This here is an interview with my friend George Blodgett. He was one of the employee owners of Fender. He still is, but he's retired. He's 80 years old. He's one of the old crew. He started back in the early 70s in the CBS era and went through to the 2000s at Fender. And he has a lot of stories, a lot of first-hand accounts of things that happened. So I wanted to make a video. This is part one, and part one will concentrate just on his biography, him talking about his early days, going to work in music stores, going to work for Kaman, then going to work at Fender and in the Rhodes division, and then moving around in the company, in sales, and a long, interesting history. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can spend some time and listen to the story. There's a part two as well, and maybe some other little bits we'll try to put up. So thanks for watching. Everybody's got a story, but yours happens to transcend through the history of...
It's an interesting one in that while I ended up with a nice Epiphone, very similar to that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we had a neighbor who was a teacher, a music teacher, and he had a club gig about 20 miles away, and at that time I was playing tuba.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's because I could carry it,
Yeah.
and stand-up bass. And the area in Ithaca at that time was, they couldn't find enough bass players. So at age 14, he went to my parents and said, look, I need a bass player. My father said something like, yeah, what? And he said, no, here's what I'd like to do. Sears has a $200 string bass, and I would like to buy it for George, and then we'll take a little money out of his paycheck to pay for it.
Yeah, right.
And that's really how I got started.
All right. So it was an upright? No,
It was
like
upright,
that, yeah.
and but way back then we didn't even think about amplifiers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or at least I didn't.
Right, yeah, I didn't even know that, yeah. And so that would be in the 50s?
It would be 54 maybe,
Yeah.
55, because it was before I graduated from high school. And he was doing all the stuff that was in the charts. And it worked very well for me. It worked well for him. And I got put into, you had to, as much as I was doing, I had to be a part of the musicians union.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
They're a little easier these days, but back then, if you wanted to play C sharp, you needed
Me in the union, yeah.
you should have played your blues. But that worked out pretty well because I dated the guy's daughter.
Yeah.
But I had to keep my nose on that one too. But then I started when I was 16, I think. There was a nice big music store in Ithaca, and it was they needed a gopher.
Yeah, right.
And they had hired me for Christmas, and by then I started some tinkering in the back of his place. It was called, oh gosh, I can't even think of it. Well, we'll put that in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We'll do that in the edit.
A little balloon in the bottom of it.
And from there, he took on the Wurlitzer electric pianos.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that was scary to people, was that first of all, it didn't really have quite a piano sound.
Yeah, right.
Second thing was it was murderous to tune them.
Yeah, right. Oh, the Wurlitzer especially. Double check this. Yeah, it's on. We'll just keep going.
But you know, I was out back. I would tinker, fix it, and you get out the solder and you
File a little off, put a little on.
and hope you don't go past it, because then you got to start all over again.
I remember that, trying to do that.
And someplace along the line, and I had no idea who she was, or why she was even in town, but she was doing I guess something at a. You know, Cornell has a lot of
Oh yeah, a lot of
frats
people coming in.
And this rather attractive lady came in and talked to the boss and said, "Look, we're having trouble with our electric piano. Help."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I don't know that much about it.
Yeah.
We can rent you a new one." She said, "No, I got to get this one fixed." And she said, "Well, okay, I'll have my guy bring it down," and he did. And I spent a good share of a weekend. Oh, damn! You know, get out and start all over again. But it came out very well. And when I started to tell you about this, I could remember her name, but I can't.
Oh yeah, right. But someone who was a touring musician of the era.
Yeah. And but that drew a little other people from like Binghamton and Elmira and so forth that had bought these things, and maybe got them bounced in it, moving them around too much in the truck or something like that. And I got guys coming in and saying, "Can you fix it?" And I said, basically, I said, "I'll try."
Yeah.
I can't guarantee it, but most of them came out pretty well. And then they took on the Fender.
Oh yeah, the Fender Rhodes. Yeah.
Fender Rhodes, and I took a look at that.
Oh yeah. What is this contraption?
But I'd still, by that time, I'd have 2 years of messing around with the Whirlies. And the guy came in and said, "We're playing up at Cornell, and my Rhodes is all messed up. Can you help me?" And somebody said you were pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And they brought it in, and it was who was the jazz band working out of Rochester? Well, there's another space to clean to put in. But anyway, Mangione.
Oh, Chuck Mangione.
Chuck Mangione. But his brother brought it in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know much about it, and it really wasn't too much out of tune, so I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how do I get around all that crap.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, right. It's the first one probably that you saw.
And the boss, seeing me struggle with this, actually called California and talked to Harold Rhodes, and Harold Rhodes said, "Well, look at you got 4 big screws on the top. You know, just take the lid off, 4 big screws, stand it straight up.
Yeah.
And now what you've got is a bunch of tines looking like this.
Yeah. Yes.
And all you had to do, and each one had a little spring-like thing, and you could change the pitch just by moving it left or right. And so pretty soon I was working on them and voicing them and so forth. And now comes back the girl that I can't think who she is. Matter of fact, she was back in the business as of a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah, wow.
Um, but anyway,
All right, we'll figure it out.
they got. I'm just trying to think what happened from there. Well, anyway, I had not. What, I was at the point where you had to get a card saying I will be in your Vietnam War.
Oh yeah.
And as it happened before, I had fallen in such a way that they had to do a lot of work on my hip and on what was the other thing? But anyway,
Yeah.
I went in.
Medical waiver or something.
Well, I didn't even ask for one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
As a side thing for fun, I had an airplane and had a good time, and so I went to the Navy and said, okay, I guess if I gotta go.
Yeah, you might as well volunteer instead of getting taken.
And they took me in for a physical, and the guy found a wired thing here, which is still there,
Yeah.
and early, probably one of the first hip replacements ever done for a youngster, because this all happened when I was 13 and 14.
Yeah.
So I went up and they threw me out. He said, but I'll tell you what we'll do. We're going to make it so that you'll only be called and you'll only get a desk job in case we need you. Which never happened. Now I hadn't taken any thought about working or anything like that.
Yeah, right. You're just.
And I went ahead and finished school, and it came out of that, and I was at Ithaca College at that time because I used to fiddle around and probably like you with your with your whirly gigs.
Yeah. Less the speakers.
Basically what happened at that point was I finished, got my diploma, and again, what was I going to do? And one of the teachers said, look, we're working on a radio station outside Albany. I don't know anything about those guys, and I'd like to have somebody I know at least hanging about. And so I went up and was the quote what would you call the manager who was the lower manager?
The middleman, or
the middle manager,
intermediary,
mediary,
going back and forth between
so I went up, and it was a challenge, and it was interesting, and I had some books left. They needed an FM station. I put it together.
Oh, right,
So on, and it was just. But here was this music store called Morrison and Putnam, and I was always in there trying to sell them something. But but more than that, I just wanted to play something. And I met some nice people in the business, but it just wasn't for me. So I went to work at the Morrison apartment, and his son the owner's son didn't want to be in the music store business. He wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
So I took or rather, the boss came to me one day and he said, "Look, we want to keep our business going, and we'd like to give you a nice raise, and out of that, we'd like to keep some of the money out of it, and eventually we would like to have you own it if it can be done." Well, that sounded good.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And we were far enough from Schenectady and Utica, places like
yeah.
but it was, at its time, it was a very big, I think we had 11,000 square feet or something like that.
Yeah, right.
It was big.
So,
And we had we had 14 teachers going all the time and so forth. And a very good repair shop and so forth. And it was my job to call all the vendors and make sure that the stuff was coming in and so on. And out of one day, and of course there's a lot that fills in between all
yeah,
that.
that's all right. It's all like
But with the me doing a lot of the working with vendors and so on, going to NAMM shows and things like that. One day I called up the company called C. Bruno and Son, which was the eventually it turned out to be Kaman.
Oh, right. Right.
And I'm saying, well, where's the stuff? We need it, you know. Well, send in your salesman. And the voice didn't say anything more than the other voice said, "Why? Are you interested?" And I'm going, "What?" And to make a long story short, I went to the boss. The boss said, "Well, hey, try it. I'm not going to hold you back. If you can make some pretty good money, it's the best of its type in the East Coast."
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and lo and behold, they liked me, and then sent me out on my first ride, starting from Cleveland to Boston.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a big neighborhood.
But we made very good money, and since I still had the airplane, I could when I felt like it, I could just fly off to Buffalo and get some work done.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that was, and so when did it? So Kaman, that's a whole other thing because Kaman, when did they, Mr. Kaman, buy the company?
Oh gosh.
That's 68 probably, or so this is before. So you joined Kaman before they were Kaman.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yes. And
but of course they went on to be even bigger.
And what happens? It's unbeknownst to me because I just didn't know. Working at C. Bruno and Son was like Fender's always saying, "Here's what we want. Here's the kind of guy we want. This is how he handles customers and so forth." So I was there for a couple of years. So I've got. When did I go? I went 40 or 70. 71 is when I went to Fender.
Okay,
so 2 years earlier than that, that's when I was working.
Okay, so 69 probably.
And it was like, holy smokes, this is a whole different world.
Yeah.
In many ways. They had three things going for them. They had Fender guitars and basses. they had, and amplifiers and so forth. They had
Yeah.
Rogers drums,
Mm-hmm.
and they had Rhodes pianos,
Yeah.
and some other things
Mm-hmm.
that kind of. And I was trained to do some things in all the areas.
Yeah.
And when I walked away, I got a call when I had gone back home to try to figure out how I was going to raise enough money for the higher housing and everything else.
Oh yeah.
And I got a car, a phone rang,
Yeah.
and I picked it up, and hi George, this is Harold.
Mm-hmm.
But Harold sounded very much like the banjo player that lived down the street. Yeah. He said, well, you know, when you get back here, I'm going to try to get you in my section, because I've heard that you're pretty good. But I'll teach you how to do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
The right way. Nobody had a right way, including me.
Never.
And so.
So for those listening on the tape, that's Harold Rhodes.
Yes.
By the way,
Yeah.
That's the
So
important.
so I went, and at that point we were deciding. Do I want to go out
to move out to the West Coast.
to the
or not,
West
yeah.
Coast, or should I stay
Mhm.
in the East Coast? Because at that point we were living just outside of Albany.
Mhm.
From there, when I got in, well, first of all, because Harold wanted to grab me, I didn't know that this is how this worked. He wanted to grab me before they sent me off to sell bases or something.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, I'll send you an airplane ticket."
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, that's not
That's weird. Yeah.
that's not going to happen. Well, just to give you how far away that it was, is that was Friday night that he called. Saturday, his truck came in the driveway, Roadway Express or something like that. Oh, Railway Express.
Railway
if
Express,
I can
yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, what the hell would be going on here?
Yeah.
So I came to the door. He said, "Sir, you have to sign here."
Mhm.
And so I signed it, opened it up, and it was 2 tickets.
Mhm.
One to keep Mama happy,
Yeah.
and first class. And so I went. We went out like 6:30 in the morning out of Albany to get there. It took most of the day. Harold was there with his wonderful Thunderbird or whatever the hell the car was.
Oh yeah,
He said,
right.
Come on,
Met you at the
let's
airport.
go."
Yeah, right.
And as he's walking in the the next thing he did, he showed me the factory.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Well, I'm supposed to take you over to the boss now."
Yeah.
And when I got there, I said to myself, "I love this guy. This guy's great.
Yeah. Right.
He's down to earth." And so originally we were supposed to go back maybe a week to get everything together and get it going.
Yeah.
And they said, no. You send your wife home, and we got a lot of work for you to do.
Uh-huh.
And the first weeks, we were dumping pianos upside down, pulling them all apart, making sure that I knew where everything was and why it worked the way it did, and how to make people happier with them,
Yeah.
make it easier for them to tune it and so on.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, I want to go home and help my wife." He said, No.
Yeah.
Monday, you're starting at San Diego, and you'll be here for just about 3 months because you'll end up in